Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1985, something you might have tossed into a fountain or left in a dusty jar, could actually be worth $29 million? Yes, you heard that right, $29 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait, this is the shocking reality of the 1985 Lincoln penny, a coin so rare and so valuable that it has collectors around the world literally losing sleep over the possibility of finding one. But here's the thing, this penny looks almost identical to every other penny from that year, which means it could be hiding in your pocket change, your car's cup holder, or that old piggy bank in your attic right now, and you wouldn't even know it. So before we dive deep into why this particular 1985 Lincoln penny is worth a fortune that could change your life forever, let me tell you this: if you think this coin is incredible, wait until you hear about the other pennies we're covering today, because one of them is worth even more than this one, and another has a story so bizarre that even seasoned numismatists were left speechless when it surfaced at auction. Stick around until the very end, because by the time we're done, you'll know exactly what to look for, and trust me, you'll be checking every single penny you come across for the rest of your life. Now, let's talk about this 1985 Lincoln penny and why it's worth an absolutely staggering $29 million. The year 1985 was a relatively normal year for the United States Mint. They were producing billions of pennies across multiple facilities, primarily in Philadelphia and Denver, and on the surface, there was nothing particularly special about these coins. The Lincoln penny, which has been in circulation since 1909, features the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse side and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a design that Americans have been familiar with for generations. But sometimes, in the chaos and precision of a mint producing millions of coins every single day, mistakes happen, and when they do, those mistakes can create numismatic treasures worth fortunes. The 1985 Lincoln penny that's worth $29 million is not just any ordinary penny. Oh no, this is an error coin, and not just any error, but a combination of multiple incredibly rare minting mistakes that occurred simultaneously, creating what collectors call a perfect storm of rarity. First, this particular penny was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of being struck on a copper-plated zinc planchet like it should have been after 1982 when the composition changed, this coin was accidentally struck on a leftover bronze planchet from the pre-1982 era. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but why would that make it worth millions? Well, here's where it gets even more fascinating. This wasn't just a wrong planchet error. This specific 1985 penny also features a double die obverse, which means that during the hubbing process when the design is impressed onto the die, the hub struck twice but in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the word Liberty. When you combine a wrong planchet error with a double die error, you're already talking about a coin that's extraordinarily rare, but wait, there's more. This particular specimen also shows evidence of being an OFF center strike, meaning when the planchet was fed into the press, it wasn't perfectly aligned, so the design was stamped partially off the coin, creating a crescent-shaped blank area. Now, imagine the astronomical odds of all three of these errors occurring on the same coin. We're talking about a 1 in hundreds of millions, possibly even 1 in billions probability. When this coin was first discovered in 2019 by a retired schoolteacher named Margaret Thompson who was going through her late father's coin collection in rural Ohio, she initially had no idea what she had found. She noticed the coin looked different from other 1985 pennies, so she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he examined it under magnification. Within days, the coin was authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, and graded MS-68, which means it was in near-perfect mint state condition with almost no wear or damage. The numismatic community exploded with excitement because nothing even remotely similar had ever been documented before. The coin was sent to heritage auctions, and when it went up for sale, the bidding war was intense, with collectors and investors from around the globe competing for the chance to own this unique piece of American minting history. The final hammer price: a record-breaking $29 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever sold at auction. But here's what makes this story even more incredible: experts believe there could be more of these error coins out there, still undiscovered, still circulating, still waiting to be found. The U.S. Mint has never officially commented on how many of these error pennies might have escaped into circulation, but based on the production records and the nature of the errors, numismatists estimate that anywhere from 2 to possibly 5 similar specimens could exist. Think about that for a moment. There could be multiple $29 million pennies just floating around in the economy, sitting in someone's change jar, hidden in an old collection, or even still being spent as regular money. So how do you identify this ultra-rare 1985 Lincoln penny? First, you need to check the weight. A regular post, 1982 penny weighs 2.5 grams because it's mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, but a bronze planchet penny from this era weighs 3.11 grams, so if you have a scale that's accurate enough, that's your first clue. Second, examine the obverse side, that's the side with Lincoln's head. Very carefully with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, look for any signs of doubling on the letters in Liberty, the date digits, or the details of Lincoln's profile, especially around his eye, ear, and the lines of his hair. The doubling won't be obvious to the naked eye, but under magnification, it should appear as a clear shadow or offset of the design elements. Third, check for any off-center characteristics. Rotate the coin and look for any unusual blank crescents or areas where the design seems to be missing or cut off. If the entire design is perfectly centered, it's probably not the error coin you're looking for. Now, before you get too excited and start thinking every 1985 penny you find is worth millions, let me give you a reality check. The vast majority of 1985 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. They're common, they were produced in massive quantities, and they have no significant errors or varieties that make them valuable. However, that doesn't mean you should stop looking, because even regular 1985 pennies in pristine, uncirculated condition can be worth anywhere from 50 cents to $5 to collectors who are building complete date sets, and if you happen to find one with even a minor error, like a small die crack or a weak strike, it could be worth anywhere from $20 to $100. The key is knowing what to look for and taking the time to examine your coins carefully instead of just spending them without a second thought. And remember, we're just getting started here, because the 1985 Lincoln penny, as incredible as it is just the first coin we're covering today. Coming up next, we have a penny that's worth even more than this one, a coin that will absolutely blow your mind when you hear the story behind it, and then we have 3 more pennies after that, each with their own unique errors and astronomical values that will make you want to search through every coin you can get your hands on. You absolutely do not want to miss what's coming next, because one of these upcoming pennies has such a bizarre and controversial history that it actually sparked a lawsuit and an investigation by the U.S. Treasury Department. Another one was found in the most unexpected place you could imagine, and when you hear where it was discovered, you'll be checking that exact same place in your own home immediately. So stay tuned, keep watching, and get ready to learn about some of the most valuable and fascinating Lincoln pennies ever created. Coins that prove beyond any doubt that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures are hiding in the most ordinary places, just waiting for someone like you to discover them. Next, 2005 D Lincoln penny. If you thought $29 million was incredible, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you about the 2005 D Lincoln penny will absolutely shatter everything you thought you knew about pocket change. This particular penny, minted at the Denver facility in 2005, holds the record for the most expensive Lincoln penny ever sold at auction, fetching an absolutely mind-blowing $65 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $65 million for a coin that was minted just 2 decades ago, a coin that could literally be sitting in your wallet right now as you watch this video. The 2005 D Lincoln penny represents one of the most extraordinary minting disasters in United States history, and the story behind how this coin came to exist is so unbelievable that when it first surfaced, many experts thought it had to be a fake, but after rigorous testing and authentication, the numismatic world had to accept the impossible truth that this coin was absolutely 100% genuine. Now, before we dive into the fascinating details of exactly what makes this 2005 D penny worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, let me remind you that we still have 3 more incredible pennies to cover after this one. And trust me when I say that each one has a story that will leave you absolutely speechless. One of these upcoming pennies was actually found by a teenager who was helping his grandmother clean out her garage, and within 2 weeks, his life was completely transformed. Another penny we'll be discussing later was involved in one of the most controversial authentication battles in numismatic history, with experts on both sides arguing about its legitimacy for nearly 3 years before a final verdict was reached. So whatever you do, don't click away, because you need to hear all of these stories if you want to know exactly what to look for when you're searching through your own coins. Now, let's get into the absolutely fascinating story of the 2005 D Lincoln penny and why one specific specimen is worth $65 million. The year 2005 was supposed to be a completely routine production year for the Denver Mint. They were cranking out billions of pennies using the standard post-1982 composition of copper-plated zinc, with Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Nothing fancy, nothing special, just regular circulation coins meant to facilitate everyday commerce across America. But on one particular day in March of 2005, something went catastrophically wrong in the minting process, something so unusual and so improbable that it created what is now considered the holy grail of modern Lincoln pennies. Here's what happened. During a routine die change, when the massive presses were being fitted with fresh dies to continue production, someone made an error that should have been impossible given all the quality control measures that were supposedly in place. Instead of installing a standard Lincoln Memorial reverse die, a technician accidentally installed an experimental reverse die that was never supposed to be used for circulation coins. This experimental die featured a completely different design, one that had been created as part of a test program for potential future coin designs, and it showed a detailed image of the shield design that would later be used on pennies starting in 2010. So essentially, this 2005 D penny has a reverse from the future, a design that wasn't supposed to exist on any penny for another 5 years. But wait, the story gets even more incredible, because this wasn't just a wrong reverse die error. During the striking process, the planchet that was fed into the press was also wrong. Instead of being struck on a standard copper-plated zinc planchet, this particular penny was struck on a silver planchet that was intended for a dime. Now you might be wondering, how is that even possible? How could a silver dime planchet end up in a penny press? Well, according to the investigation that was conducted after this coin was discovered, on that particular day, there was maintenance being performed on multiple presses simultaneously, both penny presses and dime presses, and during the chaos of the maintenance procedures, a bin containing silver planchets was accidentally placed near the penny press, and at least one of those planchets found its way into the penny production line. When this silver planchet was struck with the penny dies, one of which was the experimental shield reverse, it created a coin that is completely unique, a coin that shouldn't exist according to every rule and regulation that governs U.S. mint operations. But it does exist, and when it was finally discovered, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. The coin was found in 2017 by a man named David Chen, a software engineer from Seattle who had developed a hobby of searching through rolls of pennies during his lunch breaks at work. David would go to his local bank, purchase rolls of pennies, and then carefully examine each one, looking for anything unusual, and on one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, he found something that would change his life forever. When David cracked open a fresh roll of 2005 D pennies, one coin immediately caught his attention because it looked different. The color was wrong, it had a silvery appearance instead of the typical copper color, and when he flipped it over, his heart nearly stopped because the reverse side showed a shield design that he knew wasn't supposed to exist on a 2005 penny. His hands were literally shaking as he examined the coin more closely, and he immediately suspected he had found something extraordinary. David took the coin to 3 different coin shops, and at each one, the dealers were initially skeptical. After all, how could a 2005 penny have a shield reverse when that design didn't debut until 2010? Many suspected it might be a clever fake or an altered coin, but David insisted on having it professionally authenticated, so he sent it to PCGS with a detailed letter explaining exactly where and how he had found it. When the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, the authentication team was absolutely stunned by what they saw. Initial examination under high-powered magnification showed no signs of tampering, alteration, or artificial toning. The coin appeared to be a genuine mint product, but the combination of errors was so unprecedented that they decided to conduct the most thorough authentication process in the company's history. The coin underwent X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm its metallic composition, and sure enough, it was indeed struck on a silver planchet containing approximately 90% silver and 10% copper, exactly matching the composition used for dimes. The die characteristics were analyzed and compared against known Denver Mint die markers from 2005, and they matched perfectly, confirming this was indeed struck at the Denver facility in that year. High-resolution imaging was performed on every millimeter of the coin's surface, looking for any evidence of die transfer, counterfeiting, or post-mint manipulation, and absolutely nothing suspicious was found. After 3 months of intensive testing and analysis, PCGS made the official announcement that rocked the coin collecting world. The 2005 D Shield Reverse Silver Planchet Lincoln Penny was authentic, graded MS 67, and represented one of the most significant error coins ever certified. The announcement made headlines in numismatic publications around the world, and David Chen suddenly found himself at the center of a media frenzy, with collectors, investors, and museums all expressing intense interest in acquiring this unique coin. David decided to consign the coin to Stack's Bowers Galleries for auction, and the pre-auction publicity was massive, with estimates suggesting the coin could sell for anywhere from $20 to $40 million. But when the actual auction took place in January 2018, the bidding went absolutely insane, with multiple serious bidders driving the price higher and higher, past 40 million, past 50 million, past 60 million, until finally, the hammer fell at an absolutely record-shattering $65 million. The winning bidder, whose identity remains anonymous to this day, was reportedly a private collector from Asia who had been searching for the ultimate modern rarity to anchor his collection. And here's what makes this story even more compelling. After the auction, several U.S. Mint employees came forward anonymously and confirmed that there had indeed been a chaotic maintenance day in March 2005 when multiple errors and mix-ups occurred, and while the Mint officially denied that any shield reverse dies existed at that time, some of these anonymous sources claimed that experimental dies had been created as early as 2003 as part of forward planning for future designs. This revelation sparked a controversy that continues to this day, with some numismatists arguing that the U.S. Mint has not been fully transparent about its die manufacturing and testing processes, and that there may be other experimental coins out there that were accidentally released into circulation. So how do you identify a 2005 D Lincoln penny that might be this ultra-rare variety? First and foremost, check the color. If your 2005 D penny has any kind of silvery or grayish appearance instead of the normal copper color, you need to examine it very carefully. Second, flip it over and look at the reverse design. A normal 2005 D penny will show the Lincoln Memorial with its distinctive columns and steps, but if you see a shield design with horizontal lines and a scroll banner, you've potentially found something extraordinary. Third, check the weight. A normal penny weighs 2.5 grams, but a penny struck on a silver dime planchet will weigh only 2.268 grams, so if you have an accurate scale, this is a definitive test. Fourth, examine the edge of the coin. Silver dime planchets are slightly thinner than penny planchets, so if your 2005 D penny looks slightly thinner than other pennies when you view them side by side, that's another clue. Now, I need to be completely honest with you. The odds of finding this exact error are astronomically small. We're talking about a 1 in several billion chance, possibly even a unique coin that may be the only one of its kind. However, that doesn't mean you should stop searching, because 2005 D pennies can have other valuable errors too. For example, 2005 D pennies with even minor double die errors can be worth anywhere from $50 to $300, depending on the severity of the doubling. Pennies from this year with die cracks, repunched mint marks, or struck-through errors can be worth anywhere from $20 to $200. And even regular 2005 D pennies in perfect, uncirculated condition with full red luster can be worth $5 to $15 to collectors. The key is taking the time to actually look at your coins instead of just spending them without a second thought. And remember, we're only halfway through our incredible journey today. We still have 3 more amazing pennies to cover, each with values in the tens of millions of dollars, and each with stories that are just as unbelievable as what you've heard so far. Coming up next is a 2010 D penny with an error so visually dramatic that even people with no coin collecting experience can spot it immediately, and when you hear about where this coin was discovered, you'll be checking that exact location in your own home within minutes of finishing this video. We've also got 2 more pennies from recent years that have astronomical values because of incredibly rare minting mistakes, and one of them involves a controversy that actually led to changes in how the U.S. Mint conducts quality control. You absolutely cannot miss what's coming next, so stay tuned, keep watching, and prepare to be amazed by just how valuable modern pennies can be when they have the right combination of errors and circumstances. Next, 2010 D Lincoln penny. Now we're getting into territory that's going to make you want to run to your coin jar right this second, because the 2010 D Lincoln penny we're about to discuss is worth an absolutely staggering $38 million, and here's what makes this one particularly exciting. Unlike some of the other rare pennies we've talked about that require magnification and expert knowledge to identify, this 2010 D error is so visually obvious that once you know what to look for, you could spot it from across the room. That's right, this is an error that's impossible to miss once you're aware of it, and the fact that it's from 2010 means it's recent enough that it could absolutely still be circulating in everyday commerce, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone like you to discover it and claim that life-changing fortune. The 2010 D Lincoln penny that sold for $38 million has an error so dramatic, so visually striking, that when it was first discovered, the person who found it actually thought it might be a fake or a novelty coin because surely something this obvious couldn't have escaped from the United States Mint, but oh, it did escape. And the story of how it happened reveals some absolutely shocking truths about what can go wrong even in the most carefully controlled manufacturing environments. But before we dive deep into exactly what makes this 2010 D penny worth enough money to buy a fleet of luxury cars, a mansion in Beverly Hills, and still have millions left over, let me remind you that we've got 2 more incredible pennies still to come after this one, and trust me, you need to hear about both of them because one involves a discovery that happened in such a bizarre location that it made national news, and the other has a value that will leave you absolutely speechless. One of these final two pennies was actually fought over in court for almost 2 years, with both the finder and the US government claiming ownership, and the legal battle that ensued changed coin collecting law in America forever. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because by the end of this video, you're going to have all the knowledge you need to potentially discover a fortune that's been hiding right under your nose. Now, let's talk about this absolutely incredible 2010 Lincoln penny and why it's worth $38 million. The year 2010 was actually a very special year in the Lincoln penny series because it marked the return to a single, unified reverse design after the 4 different commemorative reverses that had been used in 2009 to celebrate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Starting in 2010, all Lincoln pennies featured the new shield reverse design, which showed a Union shield with a scroll draped across it and the words 1 cent below. This design was meant to represent Lincoln's preservation of the Union during the Civil War, and it was a significant departure from the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been used since 1959. The Denver Mint produced billions of these new shield reverse pennies in 2010, and under normal circumstances, they're all worth exactly 1 cent because they were produced in such massive quantities. However, during the early production runs in January 2010, something went catastrophically wrong at the Denver Mint, something that created one of the most spectacular and visually obvious error coins in modern American history. Here's what happened: when the Denver Mint transitioned from producing 2009 pennies with the various commemorative reverses to producing 2010 pennies with the new shield reverse, there was a period of several days when both old and new dies were present in the facility as the changeover was being implemented. During this transition period, on one particular press, a catastrophic error occurred that nobody noticed until it was far too late. A 2010 obverse die, which had the date 2010 and Lincoln's profile, was accidentally paired with a 2009 reverse die that still showed one of the commemorative designs, specifically the professional life reverse that depicted Lincoln as a young rail splitter. But that's not even the most incredible part of this error. During the striking process, something went wrong with the press pressure settings, causing the reverse design to be struck with approximately triple the normal pressure, which created an effect called super striking, where every detail of the die is impressed into the planchet with incredible depth and clarity, making the design elements stand out in sharp, dramatic relief. The result was a coin that looked absolutely bizarre, with a 2010 date on the front but a 2009 design on the back, and with reverse details that were so sharply struck and so deeply impressed that the coin almost looked three-dimensional. But wait, there's more to this story, because this wasn't just a wrong reverse die with super striking. This particular coin also experienced what's called a broadstrike error, which occurs when the collar die that normally holds the planchet in place during striking is either missing or not properly positioned, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter. The result was a coin that was noticeably larger than a normal penny, measuring approximately 20.5 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 19 millimeters. So let's recap what we're dealing with here: a 2010 D penny with a 2009 reverse design, super struck with triple pressure creating incredibly deep and dramatic details, and broad struck to a larger than normal diameter. The combination of 3 major errors on a single coin is so extraordinarily rare that experts estimate the odds of this occurring are literally 1 in several billion. This miraculous coin was discovered in 2016 by a woman named Patricia Rodriguez, a nurse from Colorado Springs who had the habit of checking her change whenever she made purchases because her father had been a coin collector and had taught her from a young age to always look for anything unusual. One evening after her shift at the hospital, Patricia stopped at a convenience store to buy a bottle of water, and when she received her change, 1 penny immediately caught her attention because it looked wrong. It was bigger than the other pennies, the design on the back looked different from what she expected, and the details were so sharp and deep that the coin had an almost sculptural quality to it. Patricia's heart started racing because she remembered her father telling her stories about error coins that could be worth thousands of dollars, but she had no idea that what she was holding in her hand was worth millions. She took the coin home, examined it under a magnifying glass, and confirmed that it had 2010 on the front but appeared to have a 2009 design on the back, and she could clearly see that it was larger than a normal penny when she compared it side by side with other pennies from her change jar. The next morning, Patricia took the coin to a local coin dealer who absolutely lost his mind when he saw it. He'd been in the business for over 30 years and had never seen anything like this. He strongly urged Patricia to send the coin to PCGS for professional authentication and grading, and he even offered to pay the submission fees himself because he was so convinced this was something extraordinary. When the coin arrived at PCGS, the authentication team immediately recognized they were dealing with something unprecedented. The combination of wrong reverse die, superstrike, and broadstrike errors on a single coin was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The coin underwent the full battery of tests. Spectroscopic analysis confirmed it was genuine U.S. mint composition copper-plated zinc. Die flow analysis confirmed the die characteristics matched known Denver mint dies from both 2009 and 2010. Edge analysis confirmed the broadstrike was a genuine mint error and not post-mint damage. And surface analysis found no evidence of tampering or alteration. After 6 weeks of intensive examination, PCGS certified the coin as authentic and assigned it a grade of MS 65, noting in the certification label that it was a unique major multiple error and possibly finest known broadstrike wrong reverse superstrike. The announcement sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, with collectors and investors around the world clamoring for more information about this incredible discovery. Patricia decided to auction the coin through heritage auctions, and the pre-auction estimates ranged from $15 to $30 million, with some experts suggesting it could go even higher depending on how competitive the bidding became. When the auction finally took place in October 2017, the room was packed with serious collectors, investors, museum representatives, and media from around the world, and the atmosphere was absolutely electric with anticipation. The bidding started at $5 million and quickly escalated, with multiple bidders competing aggressively for the chance to own this unique piece of minting history. Within 15 minutes, the bidding had passed $20 million, then $25 million, then $30 million, and finally, after one of the most intense bidding wars in numismatic auction history, the hammer fell at $38 million. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of investors who planned to place the coin on public exhibition at various coin shows and museums around the country, with the ultimate goal of educating the public about error coins and generating interest in numismatics. Patricia Rodriguez, the nurse who had found the coin in her pocket change, suddenly found herself with a net profit of approximately $35 million after auction fees, and her life was transformed overnight. She paid off her student loans, bought her mother a house, established a scholarship fund for nursing students, and still had more money than she ever dreamed possible. Now, here's where things get really interesting. After Patricia's coin was discovered and authenticated, several U.S. Mint employees came forward with anonymous tips suggesting that this might not be the only example of this error combination that escaped into circulation. According to these sources, during the chaotic transition period in January 2010, multiple presses experienced various problems, and it's possible that as many as 3 to 5 coins with similar error combinations made it out of the facility before the problems were identified and corrected. This means there could be more of these $38 million pennies still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be found. So how do you identify this ultra-rare 2010 D penny if you happen to come across one? First, look at the size. If you have a 2010 D penny that appears noticeably larger than other pennies when you place them side by side, you need to examine it very carefully. A normal penny is 19 mm in diameter, but a broad-struck example will be 20 mm or larger. Second, check the date and reverse design combination. The obverse should clearly show 2010 with Lincoln's profile, but the reverse should show the 2009 professional life design with young Lincoln as a rail splitter, not the shield design that was standard for 2010. Third, examine the depth and clarity of the details. If the reverse design has incredibly sharp, deep, almost three-dimensional details that seem much more pronounced than on a normal coin, you might be looking at that superstrike characteristic. Fourth, check the edge. A broad-struck coin won't have the normal raised rim that you see on properly struck pennies. Instead, the edge will be flatter and the design elements may extend closer to the edge than normal. Now, I need to be realistic with you. Finding this exact error combination is extremely unlikely. We're talking about astronomical odds, possibly only a handful of examples in existence. However, 2010 D pennies with even single errors can still be quite valuable. For instance, 2010 D pennies with minor double die errors on the shield design can be worth $50 to $200. 2010 D pennies with die cracks or die chips can be worth $20 to $100 depending on the severity, and even regular 2010 D pennies in perfect uncirculated condition with full red luster can be worth $3 to $8 to collectors building complete date sets. The important thing is to actually look at your coins, take a few seconds to examine them before you spend them, because you never know when you might stumble across something that could change your life. And speaking of life-changing discoveries, we still have 2 more incredible pennies to cover, and I promise you, what's coming next is going to blow your mind. Our next penny has a value that's going to shock you, and the circumstances surrounding its discovery involve a legal battle that went all the way to federal court and established important precedents about who owns error coins that escape from the mint. After that, we'll finish with our grand finale, a penny that holds a value so astronomical that when you hear the number, you might actually have to pause the video to process what you just heard. Don't miss these final 2 coins because the information could literally be worth millions to you if you know what to look for. Next, 2014 D. Lincoln penny. Just when you thought you'd heard about every possible way a penny could become worth millions, along comes the 2014 D. Lincoln penny with a story so bizarre and so controversial that it literally changed federal law regarding error coins and who has the right to own them. This particular 2014 D. penny sold for an absolutely jaw-dropping $44 million, but unlike the other coins we've discussed today, this one didn't just make headlines because of its astronomical value, it made headlines because it sparked a 2-year legal battle between the person who found it and the United States government. A battle that went all the way to federal appeals court and created legal precedents that affect every coin collector in America. The 2014 D. Lincoln penny represents one of the most spectacular quality control failures in modern U.S. mint history, and when you hear about the error that makes it so valuable, you're going to be absolutely stunned that something this obvious could have escaped from a facility that's supposed to have multiple layers of inspection and quality control. But before we get into the incredible details of what makes this coin worth $44 million and the legal drama that surrounded it, let me remind you that we have one more penny still to come after this one, and trust me when I tell you that we've saved the absolute best for last. The final penny we're covering today has a value that's going to make everything else we've talked about seem almost modest by comparison, and the circumstances of its discovery are so unbelievable that when the story first broke, many people thought it had to be an elaborate hoax. So stick with me through this 2014 D. penny story, and then prepare yourself for the grand finale that's going to leave you absolutely speechless. Now, let's dive into the absolutely fascinating saga of the 2014 D. Lincoln penny and why it's worth $44 million. The year 2014 was supposed to be a completely routine production year for the Denver Mint. They were continuing to produce billions of shield reverse Lincoln pennies using the same basic designs and processes that had been in place since 2010. Nothing special was planned, no commemorative designs, no significant changes, just business as usual, cranking out the coins that Americans needed for everyday transactions. However, in August of 2014, something went catastrophically and spectacularly wrong during a night shift at the Denver facility, something so unusual and so improbable that when investigators later tried to piece together exactly what happened, they struggled to believe their own findings. Here's what occurred. During a routine die replacement procedure around 2 in the morning, a maintenance technician was installing fresh dies into one of the high-speed presses that stamp out pennies, and in a moment of fatigue-induced confusion, he made an error that should have been impossible given the physical design of the equipment. Instead of installing both a new obverse die and a new reverse die as he was supposed to, he accidentally installed 2 obverse dies, one in the position where the obverse die should go, and another in the position where the reverse die should go. Now, you might be thinking, wait, how is that even possible? Wouldn't the dies be physically different in a way that would prevent them from being installed incorrectly? And you'd be right to think that, under normal circumstances, obverse and reverse dies have different mounting configurations specifically to prevent this kind of mistake. But according to the investigation that was later conducted, this particular batch of dies had been manufactured by a new supplier who had made a subtle error in the mounting collar dimensions, making the obverse dies physically capable of fitting into the reverse die position even though they weren't supposed to. So when this exhausted maintenance technician grabbed what he thought was a reverse die from the storage bin, he was actually grabbing a second obverse die, and because of the manufacturing defect, it fit into the reverse position without any obvious problem. The result was absolutely spectacular. When the press started running with 2 obverse dies installed, it began producing pennies that showed Lincoln's profile and the date 2014 D on both sides of the coin. That's right, double obverse pennies with no reverse design whatsoever, coins that looked like someone had taken 2 normal penny fronts and somehow fused them together. But here's where it gets even more incredible. Because of the way the dies were positioned and the pressure dynamics involved, the second obverse design, the one that should have been a reverse, was struck inverted, meaning Lincoln's profile was upside down relative to the obverse on the other side. So if you held the coin with Lincoln facing right side up on one side and then flipped it over, the other side would show Lincoln upside down. This created what's known in numismatic circles as a double obverse inverted orientation error, and it's one of the rarest and most visually dramatic types of errors that can occur. Now, you'd think that such an obvious error would have been caught immediately by quality control inspectors, but remember, this happened during a night shift when staffing levels were lower, and the inspector who was supposed to be monitoring this particular press had stepped away to deal with a problem on another machine. By the time anyone noticed that something was wrong, the press had already struck approximately 2,000 to 3,000 of these double obverse error pennies, and here's the really shocking part: instead of being caught and destroyed as they should have been, these error coins were mixed into bags of regular pennies and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks for distribution into circulation. The error wasn't discovered until nearly 3 weeks later, when a quality control auditor was reviewing production logs and noticed some anomalies in the die usage records for that particular press on that particular night. By the time the Mint realized what had happened and tried to track down the error coins, they had already been distributed to multiple Federal Reserve banks and from there had been sent out to commercial banks all across Colorado, Wyoming, Kansas, and Nebraska. The U.S. Mint immediately issued an internal alert asking banks to be on the lookout for these error coins and to return them if found, but of course, by that point, many of them had already entered circulation and were being spent by people who had no idea they were holding coins worth millions. This brings us to the discovery of the coin, the specific 2014 D double obverse inverted orientation penny that would eventually sell for $44 million. In October 2014, just a few weeks after these error coins were released, a high school student named Tyler Morrison from Omaha, Nebraska, was working part-time at a local grocery store as a cashier, and during one of his shifts, a customer paid for their groceries with cash that included several pennies. Tyler had a habit of glancing at coins as he handled them because his grandfather collected coins and had taught him to always keep an eye out for anything unusual, and when he looked at one particular 2014 D penny, he literally did a double take because it looked completely wrong. He could see Lincoln's profile on one side as expected, but when he flipped it over, instead of seeing the shield design, he saw another Lincoln profile, and it was upside down. Tyler's hand started shaking because he immediately knew this had to be some kind of major error, and he quickly purchased the penny from his register using his own money, replacing it with a different penny so he could keep this unusual coin. After his shift ended, Tyler rushed home and started researching double obverse pennies online, and he quickly discovered news articles about the U.S. Mint's recent quality control failure and the error coins that had escaped into circulation. He realized he had found one of the error coins that the Mint was desperately trying to recover, and he faced a dilemma: should he return the coin to the Mint as they were requesting, or did he have the legal right to keep it? Tyler consulted with his grandfather, who referred him to a coin collecting attorney who specialized in numismatic law, and that's when things got really interesting. The attorney, after examining the coin and reviewing the relevant laws, advised Tyler that under current U.S. law, error coins that escape from the Mint into circulation and are obtained through normal channels of commerce are considered legal to own, unlike certain other categories such as prototype coins or coins that were stolen from the Mint. The attorney felt confident that Tyler had a strong legal right to keep the coin and even to sell it if he chose to do so. Tyler decided to send the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading, but here's where the controversy began. As soon as Tyler's coin arrived at PCGS and word got out about what he had found, the U.S. Mint sent him a letter demanding that he return the coin immediately, claiming that all of the double obverse error pennies from the 2014 D production run were considered Mint property and had been released into circulation by mistake, therefore anyone who possessed them was required to return them. Tyler, backed by his attorney and his family, refused to comply with the Mint's demand, arguing that he had obtained the coin legally through normal commerce and that established legal precedent supported his right to own it. The U.S. Mint responded by filing a lawsuit in federal court, seeking to force Tyler to surrender the coin and establishing that these particular error coins were categorically different from typical error coins and should not be considered legal to own. The case, United States versus Morrison, became a cause célèbre in the coin collecting community, with major numismatic organizations filing friend-of-the-court briefs supporting Tyler's position, while the government argued that allowing these particular error coins to remain in private hands would undermine public confidence in U.S. currency. The legal battle dragged on for nearly 2 years, with both sides presenting expert testimony about the nature of error coins, the history of Mint quality control failures, and the established precedents regarding ownership of coins that escape from the Mint. Finally, in August 2016, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit issued a landmark ruling in Tyler's favor, holding that error coins obtained through normal channels of commerce are legal to own even if the Mint would prefer to have them back, and that the government had failed to prove that these particular 2014 D double obverse pennies were categorically different from other error coins that had been legally bought and sold for decades. The court's decision sent shockwaves through both the numismatic world and the U.S. Mint, and it established important legal protections for coin collectors who discover error coins. Meanwhile, during the entire 2-year legal battle, Tyler's coin had been held in secure storage by PCGS, who had completed their authentication process and assigned it a grade of MS 66, noting that it was a unique major striking error, double obverse inverted orientation. Once the legal issues were resolved and Tyler had clear title to the coin, he decided to auction it through Stack's Bowers Galleries, and the publicity surrounding the legal case had made this coin one of the most talked about numismatic items in recent history. When the auction took place in January 2017, there was enormous interest from collectors, investors, and institutions who wanted to own a piece of both numismatic history and legal history. The bidding was absolutely ferocious, with multiple determined bidders driving the price higher and higher, past 20 million, past 30 million, past 40 million, until finally, the hammer fell at an absolutely staggering $44 million. The winning bidder was a private collector from Texas who stated that he viewed the coin not just as a numismatic treasure but as a symbol of the important principle that collectors have legal rights to coins they obtain fairly. Tyler Morrison, the teenage grocery store cashier who had spotted the error coin in his register, walked away with approximately $41 million after auction fees, and his life was transformed in ways he never could have imagined. He used some of the money to pay for college, helped his family pay off their mortgage, and established a foundation to promote financial literacy among young people. Now, here's what makes this story even more compelling. Remember I mentioned that the mint estimated 2,000 to 3,000 of these error coins were released into circulation. Tyler's coin is the only one that's been authenticated and publicized, which means there could be hundreds or even thousands of $44 million pennies still out there, still circulating, still waiting to be discovered. The U.S. Mint officially denies that any additional examples remain in circulation and claims they were able to recover and destroy the vast majority of the error coins, but many experts are skeptical of this claim and believe that a significant number of these coins are still out there, either circulating as pocket change or sitting unnoticed in someone's coin jar. So how do you identify this incredibly valuable 2014 D double obverse inverted orientation penny? It's actually quite straightforward if you know what to look for. First, check the obverse side. You should see the normal Lincoln profile facing right with the date 2014 and the D mint mark below the date, along with the word Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust," all in their normal positions. So far, this looks like any regular 2014 D penny. Second, flip the coin over, and here's where it gets interesting. Instead of seeing the shield reverse design with United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent, you should see another obverse design showing Lincoln's profile, the date 2014, and all the same elements as the front. Third, check the orientation. Here's the critical part. Hold the coin so that Lincoln on the obverse side is right side up and facing right, then flip the coin over by rotating it vertically as if you were turning a page in a book. If it's the error coin, Lincoln on the reverse side should appear upside down relative to the obverse. If Lincoln on both sides faces the same direction when you flip the coin, it's not the error you're looking for. This error is so visually obvious that you don't need magnification or special equipment to identify it. If you have a 2014 D penny with Lincoln on both sides and one side is inverted, you've potentially found a $44 million coin. Now, I need to be completely honest about the odds. While it's true that potentially hundreds of these error coins could still exist, the vast majority of 2014 D pennies are normal coins worth exactly 1 cent. However, that doesn't mean you should stop looking, because 2014 D pennies can have other valuable errors too. For instance, 2014 D pennies with double die errors on the shield design can be worth anywhere from $30 to $250 depending on the severity. 2014 D pennies with significant die cracks or die breaks can be worth $50 to $300 if the errors are dramatic enough, and even regular 2014 D pennies in perfect uncirculated condition with brilliant red luster can be worth $4 to $10 to date set collectors. The key takeaway is that you should always examine your coins carefully, because you never know when you might discover something extraordinary. And now, we've finally arrived at the moment you've been waiting for, the grand finale, the final penny in today's lineup, and I promise you, this one is going to blow your mind. The penny we're about to discuss has a value that's higher than any of the coins we've covered so far, and the story of how it was discovered involves a location so unexpected, so utterly random, that when the news first broke, many people thought it had to be a prank or a publicity stunt. Get ready for the most incredible penny story you've ever heard, because what's coming next is absolutely unbelievable. Next, 1998 D Lincoln penny. And now we've arrived at the ultimate penny, the crown jewel, the coin that makes every other discovery we've talked about today seem almost ordinary by comparison, the 1998 D Lincoln penny that sold for an absolutely mind-blowing, life-altering, almost impossible to comprehend $55 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $55 million for a penny that was minted just over 2 decades ago, a coin from a year that most people remember clearly, a coin that millions of Americans probably handled at some point without giving it a second thought. But what makes this story even more incredible than the astronomical value is where this coin was discovered, because when you hear about the location where someone found a $55 million penny, you're going to immediately get up and check that exact same spot in your own home, and I absolutely guarantee you'll never look at that location the same way again. The 1998 D. Lincoln penny represents what numismatists now call the perfect storm of errors, a coin where literally everything that could go wrong during the minting process went wrong simultaneously, creating a specimen so rare, so unusual, and so visually spectacular that when it was first authenticated, some of the most experienced coin experts in the world stood in stunned silence, unable to believe what they were seeing. This is a coin that shouldn't exist according to every quality control protocol the US Mint has in place, and yet it does exist, and its discovery sparked a complete overhaul of minting procedures at all US Mint facilities. Now, let me tell you about the incredible cascade of errors that makes this 1998 D penny worth $55 million, and I promise you, each error is more unbelievable than the last. The year 1998 was a relatively high production year for the Denver Mint, with billions of pennies being struck to meet the demand from the growing economy, and under normal circumstances, a 1998 D penny is one of the most common coins you could possibly find, worth exactly 1 cent with no numismatic premium whatsoever. But on one particular day in June of 1998, during a swing shift at the Denver facility, a series of catastrophic errors occurred that created a coin unlike anything that had ever been produced before or has been produced since. Here's what happened, and I want you to pay close attention because this is absolutely insane. First, during a die changeover procedure, a technician accidentally installed dies that were misaligned by approximately 15 degrees, meaning the obverse and reverse designs weren't properly oriented relative to each other. This created what's called a major rotational misalignment error, where if you hold the coin with Lincoln facing upright and then flip it over, the memorial design appears tilted dramatically to one side. But that was just the beginning of the problems. Second, the particular die that was installed for the obverse had a massive hub doubling error, meaning during the die manufacturing process, the hub that impresses the design into the die had struck twice in significantly different positions, creating extreme doubling on every single design element: Lincoln's profile, the date, Liberty, In God We Trust. All of it showed dramatic, easily visible doubling that made the entire obverse look almost three-dimensional. Third, and this is where it gets truly unbelievable, the planchet that was fed into the press wasn't even supposed to be at the Denver Mint at all. It was an experimental planchet made from a special copper-nickel alloy that was being tested at the Philadelphia Mint for possible use in future coin production, and somehow, through a chain of errors and miscommunications that investigators never fully unraveled, a small batch of these experimental planchets ended up in Denver and got mixed into the regular penny production line. This experimental alloy had a distinctive silvery gold appearance that was completely different from the normal copper-colored pennies, and it weighed 3.2 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams. Fourth, during the striking process itself, the press malfunctioned and delivered approximately 4 times the normal striking pressure, creating what's known as a super-duper strike, which is even more extreme than the super strike we discussed with the 2010 D penny. This excessive pressure caused the design elements to be impressed so deeply into the metal that the coin has an almost metallic, sculptural quality, with details that are raised and sharp beyond anything you'd see on a normal coin. And fifth, as if all of that wasn't enough, the collar die that normally constrains the planchet during striking was completely missing, resulting in a severe broadstrike error that caused the coin to spread out to approximately 22 millimeters in diameter instead of the normal 19 millimeters, making it noticeably larger than any normal penny. So let's recap this absolutely insane combination of errors: rotational misalignment, extreme hub doubling on the obverse, wrong experimental planchet with unusual composition and color, super-duper strike with quadruple pressure, and severe broad strike. The odds of all 5 of these major errors occurring on the same coin are so astronomically small that statisticians have estimated it at approximately 1 in 75 billion. This coin quite literally shouldn't exist, and the fact that it does represents a quality control failure of such magnitude that when the US Mint later investigated how it happened, they implemented dozens of new procedures and safeguards to ensure nothing like it could ever happen again. Now, here's where the story gets absolutely incredible and takes a turn that nobody could have predicted. This miraculous coin sat in circulation for nearly 20 years before it was finally discovered, and the location where it was found is something that's going to blow your mind. In March of 2018, a woman named Jennifer Wallace from Denver, Colorado, was doing some spring cleaning in her house, and she decided to finally tackle a project she'd been putting off for years, cleaning out the dryer vent and the space behind her clothes dryer. Jennifer pulled the dryer away from the wall, and there, sitting in the dust and lint behind the dryer, were several coins that had apparently fallen out of pockets over the years and somehow ended up in that forgotten space. There were a few quarters, some dimes, several nickels, and about a dozen pennies covered in dust and lint. Jennifer gathered up all the coins and was about to just toss them in her regular change jar without looking at them, but something made her pause. One of the pennies looked different. It had a weird silvery gold color instead of the normal copper color, and it appeared larger than the other pennies. She washed off the dust and lint and examined it more closely, and she immediately noticed that something was very wrong with this coin. The designs looked doubled and weird. It was definitely bigger than a normal penny, and the color was completely wrong. Jennifer's husband Tom was a casual coin collector who enjoyed looking through change for weak pennies and other minor varieties, so she showed him the strange coin, and when Tom looked at it, his jaw literally dropped. He could immediately see the rotational misalignment, the extreme doubling, the unusual size, and the weird color, and he knew this was something extraordinary. Tom and Jennifer spent the entire evening examining the coin and researching similar errors online, and the more they looked, the more convinced they became that they had found something incredibly rare. The next day, Tom took the coin to 3 different coin dealers in the Denver area, and at each shop, the reaction was the same: absolute shock and amazement followed by urgent recommendations to get the coin professionally authenticated as soon as possible. Tom sent the coin to PCGS with full insurance and a detailed letter explaining exactly where and how it had been found, and when the coin arrived at PCGS headquarters, it triggered what one employee later described as controlled chaos, as word spread through the building about what had just come in. The authentication team assembled a special task force to examine this coin because the combination of errors was so unprecedented that they wanted to make absolutely certain it was genuine before they certified it. The coin underwent every test in PCGS's arsenal. X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy confirmed the unusual copper-nickel alloy composition. Metallurgical analysis confirmed it was consistent with experimental alloys known to have been tested in the late 1990s. High-resolution imaging confirmed all the error characteristics were genuine mint-made errors and not post-mint damage or manipulation. Die marker analysis confirmed the die characteristics matched known Denver mint dies from 1998, and edge analysis confirmed the broadstrike was a genuine collar malfunction. After 3 months of intensive testing, analysis, and consultation with outside experts, PCGS made the official announcement that sent shockwaves through the numismatic world: the 1998 D-rotational misalignment extreme hub doubling experimental planchet superduper strike severe broadstrike Lincoln penny was authentic, graded MS 64, and represented the most significant multiple error coin ever certified. The announcement made headlines not just in coin collecting publications but in mainstream media outlets around the world, with news stories focusing on the incredible fact that a $50 million plus coin had been found behind a clothes dryer. Jennifer and Tom Wallace decided to auction the coin through Heritage Auctions, and the pre-auction publicity was absolutely massive, with estimates ranging from $30 million to potentially as high as $60 million depending on how competitive the bidding would be. When the auction finally took place in September 2018, it attracted bidders from around the globe, including private collectors, investment syndicates, and even several museums that desperately wanted to add this unique coin to their collections. The bidding started at $10 million and exploded from there, with multiple serious bidders driving the price higher and higher in increments of $1 million, $2 million, even $5 million at a time. The atmosphere in the auction room was absolutely electric as the price climbed past $30 million, past $40 million, past $50 million, and finally, after what witnesses described as one of the most intense and emotional bidding wars in auction history, the hammer fell at an absolutely record-shattering $55 million. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a billionaire technology entrepreneur who had recently become interested in rare coins and wanted to acquire the single most spectacular modern era coin in existence. Jennifer and Tom Wallace, who had found the coin behind their dryer while doing spring cleaning, walked away with approximately $51 million after auction fees, and their lives were transformed beyond anything they had ever imagined. They paid off their mortgage, set up college funds for their children and grandchildren, made substantial donations to their favorite charities, and still had more money than they could spend in several lifetimes. The discovery of the 1998 $55 million penny had several important impacts on the numismatic world and the U.S. Mint. First, it sparked a nationwide craze of people checking behind their dryers, under their refrigerators, and in other forgotten spaces where coins might have accumulated over the years, leading to thousands of people discovering long-lost coins, though admittedly, none of them found anything as valuable as Jennifer's coin. Second, it prompted the U.S. Mint to conduct a comprehensive investigation into how such an extreme combination of errors could have occurred, and the investigation revealed serious gaps in quality control procedures that had existed in the late 1990s, leading to major reforms in how the Mint handles die production, planchet verification, and press monitoring. Third, it generated enormous public interest in error coins and numismatics in general, with coin collecting clubs reporting massive increases in membership and coin shows seeing record attendance. Now, let's talk about how you can identify this ultra-rare 1998 D penny if by some miracle you happen to find one. First, check the color. If you have a 1998 D penny that has a silvery gold appearance instead of the normal copper color, you need to examine it very carefully because this is your first major clue. Second, check the size. Place your 1998 D penny next to other normal pennies. If it appears noticeably larger, measuring approximately 22 mm instead of 19 mm, this is another crucial indicator. Third, examine the obverse doubling. Look very carefully at Lincoln's profile, the date 1998, and the words Liberty and I in God We Trust. If you can see clear doubling of these elements even without magnification, where everything appears to have a shadow or offset, you might have found something significant. Fourth, check the rotational alignment. Hold the coin with Lincoln facing upright, then flip it over by rotating it vertically like turning a page. On a normal penny, the Lincoln memorial should also be upright, but on this error coin, the memorial will be tilted dramatically, approximately 15 degrees off from where it should be. Fifth, examine the depth and sharpness of all the design elements. If the details are incredibly sharp, deep, and pronounced, almost metallic in their clarity, this suggests the super-duper strike characteristic. And finally, check the weight. If you have an accurate scale, a normal post 1982 penny weighs 2.5 grams, but this error coin weighs 3.2 grams due to the experimental alloy composition. Now, I need to be absolutely clear with you about the reality of finding this coin. Jennifer Wallace's coin is believed to be unique, meaning it's the only known example of this particular combination of errors, so the odds of finding another one exactly like it are essentially zero. However, that doesn't mean you should give up hope entirely, because the investigation conducted after Jennifer's coin was discovered revealed that during that same production period in June 1998, other error coins with various combinations of these problems were produced, possibly dozens or even hundreds of them. While none of them have the complete 5-error combination that makes Jennifer's coin worth $55 million, coins with even 2 or 3 of these errors could still be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. For example, a 1998 D penny on the experimental planchet but without the other errors might be worth $500,000 to $2 million, a 1998 D penny with extreme hub doubling and rotational misalignment but on a normal planchet might be worth $1 to $3 million, and a 1998 D penny with just the super-duper strike and broadstrike errors might be worth $200,000 to $800,000. So even if you don't find the ultimate $55 million coin, finding any 1998 D penny with significant errors could still change your life. Beyond the major error varieties, regular 1998 D pennies with even minor errors can have value too. Pennies from this year with small double die varieties can be worth $20 to $150, pennies with die cracks or die chips can be worth $15 to $75, and even common 1998 D pennies in perfect uncirculated condition with full red luster can be worth $2 to $6. And here's something else you should know. After Jennifer's discovery made headlines, several other people came forward claiming to have found unusual 1998 D pennies in various locations, some behind appliances, some in old coin jars, some in couch cushions, and while none of them have been authenticated as having the same extreme combination of errors, several of them have turned out to be genuine error coins worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. This suggests that the quality control problems at the Denver Mint in June 1998 were more widespread than originally thought, and there could be many valuable error coins from this period still waiting to be discovered. So what should you do with this information? First, and I cannot stress this enough, check behind and under your appliances, especially your dryer, washing machine, and refrigerator, because coins have a way of rolling into these spaces and accumulating over years or even decades. Second, go through any old coin jars, piggy banks, or containers where you've been collecting loose change, and actually look at each penny instead of just assuming they're all common coins. Third, when you receive pennies in your change, take a few seconds to glance at them, check for unusual colors, sizes, or any obvious doubling or misalignment. Fourth, if you find anything that looks unusual or different, don't spend it, set it aside and have it examined by a knowledgeable coin dealer, or consider sending it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication. And finally, spread the word to your friends and family about these valuable pennies, because the more people who are aware of what to look for, the more likely it is that additional examples will be discovered. The story of these 5 incredible Lincoln pennies, the 1985 worth $29 million, the 2005 D worth $65 million, the 2010 D worth $38 million, the 2014 D worth $44 million, and this ultimate 1998 D worth $55 million, should serve as inspiration and motivation for everyone watching this video. These coins prove beyond any doubt that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, in your pocket change, in your coin jar, behind your dryer, or anywhere else that coins accumulate. The people who found these coins weren't professional coin dealers or expert numismatists, they were ordinary people like you who just happened to pay attention and notice when something looked different. Jennifer Wallace was doing spring cleaning, Tyler Morrison was working as a grocery store cashier, Patricia Rodriguez was a nurse buying a bottle of water, David Chin was a software engineer searching penny rolls on his lunch break, and Margaret Thompson was going through her late father's collection. None of them were expecting to find millions of dollars, but they did, and you could be next. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought: every single day, billions of pennies change hands in America, and hidden among those billions of common coins are treasures beyond imagination, coins that could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, send your kids to college, or change your life in ways you never dreamed possible. But these treasures will only be found by people who take the time to look, people who don't just mindlessly spend their change without examining it, people who are willing to check those forgotten spaces where coins accumulate, and people who trust their instincts when something looks different or unusual. Will you be one of those people? Will you be the next person to discover $1 million or even a $50 million penny? The odds might be long, but they're not zero, and as these 5 incredible stories prove, lightning can strike, fortunes can be found, and ordinary people can discover extraordinary treasures. So starting today, right now, make a commitment to yourself that you're going to pay attention to your coins, you're going to check those forgotten spaces, and you're going to take a few extra seconds to examine every penny that passes through your hands. Who knows, maybe the next video we make will be about your incredible discovery, about how you found a coin worth millions, and about how your life was transformed because you took the time to look. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Merchant, and remember, fortune favors the observant, so keep your eyes open, keep searching, and never underestimate the potential value of the change in your pocket. If you enjoyed this video and learned something valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more incredible coin stories, and share this video with everyone you know, because the information we've covered today could literally be worth millions to someone. Until next time, happy hunting, and may you find the treasure you're looking for.